By the spring of 1940, Europe was engulfed in the chaos of World War II. Sweden, a neutral nation for over a century, found itself precariously positioned between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. The strategic importance of Sweden's high-grade iron ore was clear to all, especially Germany, whose war machine depended on it. The Allies knew cutting off this supply could cripple Hitler's war efforts. Germany's invasion of Denmark and Norway in April 1940 left Sweden nearly encircled. The Swedish government, led by Prime Minister Per Albin Hansson, faced immense pressure to maintain neutrality without becoming a puppet state. Sweden declared armed neutrality, mobilizing its military and strengthening defenses. Citizens were trained in civil defense, fostering a sense of national unity. Yet the small Swedish army was no match for the German Wehrmacht. The nation anxiously awaited the inevitable crisis. The Swedish government had to navigate a treacherous path, appeasing German demands just enough to avoid an invasion. The Swedish people lived in constant anxiety, aware of their vulnerability. The question was not if the crisis would come to a head, but when. Sweden's balancing act required immense diplomatic skill and nerves of steel. The world watched as Sweden walked a tightrope, trying to maintain its independence. With Norway under German control, Hitler turned his attention to Sweden, demanding more than trade agreements. He sought a treaty placing Sweden's iron ore industry under German supervision, ensuring maximum production for the Reich. Germany also demanded the right to transport troops across Swedish territory, violating Sweden's neutrality. The German ambassador delivered these demands as an ultimatum, backed by the threat of invasion. For Sweden, accepting meant losing independence. Refusing risked invasion. The cabinet faced a dire choice: comply and become a collaborator, or resist and face potential destruction. The Swedish government dreaded this moment, knowing the fate of their nation rested on their decision. The demands were a clear violation of Sweden's neutrality. The German High Command saw Sweden as a vital land bridge. The full weight of German military power was the unspoken threat. The Swedish government knew that any misstep could be catastrophic. The cabinet met in secret, debating the nation's future. The decision was fraught with tension and uncertainty. Sweden's response would determine its fate in the war. At a historic crossroads, Sweden's government, led by Per Albin Hansson, faced a divided cabinet. Some ministers argued for pragmatism, citing Denmark's quick capitulation as a survival model. Others, led by King Gustav V, insisted on defending sovereignty even at great cost. The decision was a testament to defiance. Sweden refused Germany's demands. They would continue iron ore trade, but not cede control or allow troop transit. Sweden reaffirmed its armed neutrality, ready to defend its borders. In Berlin, Hitler saw this as a personal insult, ordering plans for invasion. Operation Polar Fuchs, or Polar Fox, was to be swift and overwhelming. The Swedish refusal was a brave act of defiance. The die was cast, and Sweden braced for the consequences. The decision was fraught with tension and uncertainty. Sweden's response would determine its fate in the war. The world watched as Sweden stood firm against German demands. In late June 1940, Operation Polar Fuchs commenced, aiming to swiftly overwhelm Sweden. German divisions advanced from Norway, targeting Östersund to split Sweden. The Luftwaffe bombarded key Swedish cities, crippling defences. The Kriegsmarine blockaded Gothenburg, launching amphibious assaults. On Gotland, German troops secured a strategic base. The invasion exemplified blitzkrieg, fast, coordinated and brutal. Sweden's military, though prepared, was outmatched by Germany's might. The Swedish Air Force fought valiantly but was outnumbered. On the ground, Swedish troops used guerrilla tactics to slow the advance. Despite fierce resistance, German superiority was undeniable. The initial German landings quickly established beachheads. Sweden faced a desperate battle for survival. The Swedish Navy was no match for the Kriegsmarine. Within 48 hours, Sweden was fighting against overwhelming odds. The invasion was a textbook example of German blitzkrieg strategy. Sweden's spirited defense crumbled under relentless German pressure. German forces cut key railway lines, isolating iron ore fields. In the south, German troops advanced rapidly towards industrial centers. The Swedish Air Force engaged in desperate dogfights but suffered heavy losses. Without air cover, Swedish ground troops faced constant bombardment. The final battle for Stockholm saw fierce fighting in the suburbs. German forces converged on the capital from multiple directions. The Luftwaffe bombed the city's outskirts to break morale. With supplies dwindling and civilian casualties mounting, Sweden faced a terrible choice. On the 10th day, Sweden requested an armistice. German troops marched into Stockholm, raising the swastika over the royal palace. The brief, bloody war was over. Sweden had fallen. The Swedish defense, while valiant, was ultimately doomed. The nation faced the harsh reality of occupation. The German occupation of Sweden was immediate and oppressive. The Gestapo hunted dissidents, while a puppet government held no real power. Rationing intensified and Nazi propaganda replaced the free press. Swedes faced daily struggles for survival, simmering with quiet resentment. Small acts of passive resistance became common, symbolizing defiance. Beneath compliance, an organized resistance took shape in forests and mountains. Resistance cells, composed of diverse citizens, engaged in sabotage and intelligence gathering. They established secret networks to aid those targeted by the Gestapo. With British support, resistance efforts grew bolder, targeting railways and depots. The occupation was not the easy affair Germany anticipated. Thousands of troops were diverted to guard infrastructure and combat partisans. The Swedish spirit, though battered, remained unbroken. The resistance played a crucial role in the broader Allied strategy. Sweden's fight demonstrated the enduring struggle for freedom. The occupation was a constant reminder of lost freedom. Germany's conquest of Sweden soon became a strategic liability. The occupation required a significant garrison, draining resources. Sweden's vast terrain was difficult to police, tying down troops. The resistance targeted vital railways, disrupting iron ore transport. The logistical burden outweighed the benefits of occupation. Diplomatic repercussions included galvanizing US opinion against Germany. Sweden's fall highlighted Nazi aggression, aiding Allied support. The occupation did not solve Germany's strategic problems. The Swedish front was another demand on finite resources. The victory in Sweden was ultimately hollow. The occupation was a costly quagmire for Germany. The broader course of World War II remained unchanged. Sweden's fall was a stark reminder of total war's brutal realities. The occupation of Sweden had little impact on the war's outcome. The Allies' victory was driven by US industrial power. American factories produced war materials at an unmatched rate. The Eastern Front drained German resources in a brutal war of attrition. The battles of Stalingrad and Kursk broke the German army. The Western Allies' bombing campaign crippled German industry. The D-Day landings opened a third front, sealing Germany's fate. The Swedish resistance contributed to stretching German resources. Acts of sabotage were part of a continent-wide resistance network. The Swedish fight was a meaningful contribution to liberation. The occupation was a sideshow to the main events of the war. The Swedish resistance played its part in the broader Allied strategy. The struggle for freedom continued, even in defeat. The Swedish partisans were part of a network that gnawed at Nazi foundations. The occupation of Sweden was a regional victory with little impact on the war's outcome. The German invasion of Sweden in 1940 stands as a stark reminder of total war's brutal realities. The occupation ended over a century of peace, leaving a national trauma. Post-war reconstruction would involve rebuilding cities and the national psyche. Sweden's legacy would be complex, marked by resistance and collaboration. The invasion was a strategic miscalculation for Germany. The short-term gains were overshadowed by long-term costs. The occupation was a costly distraction for Germany. The broader course of World War II remained unchanged. Sweden's fall was a tragic chapter in the struggle against tyranny. The story of its resistance reinforced the war's central theme. The quest for domination awakens a spirit of resistance. Sweden's real history highlights the courage and luck that preserved its freedom. The alternate timeline underscores the immense pressure Sweden faced during the war.